And you have to listen to the patient. And often as doctors, we do not listen to patients and respect their wishes. Now, you've touched on a very important subject of what is assisted suicide or euthanasia. Well, euthanasia is the Greek word for euthanatos, which means good death or gentle death. Assisted suicide or assisted dying, however you want to call it, the outcome is really one of the same. Euthanasia is deliberate, intentional taking of a person's life. Now, that is in stark contrast to good medical care. For example, I will stop a treatment if I believe that treatment is causing more harm than good. Just as the famous Hippocrates, the Greek father of modern medicine, who was a pagan, who said, do no harm. And it's interesting that he was greatly against any form of assistance of killing your patients. And that was written by a pagan, not an Greek Orthodox priest or whatever, or an evangelical Christian. So we can't argue that it's only the religious lobby that argue against euthanasia. And there is a big difference. To deliberately take someone's life intentionally is, by definition, murder, because your intent is to accelerate that person's death. When I stop a treatment, which I believe to be causing more harm than benefit, and I'm afraid surgeons are often inadvertently guilty of that when they put patients on intravenous fluids for days on end without artificially feeding them, and they're extremely ill from their malignancy. What you're really doing is you're delaying their natural death by keeping them hydrated. So they're slowly, if you like, being starved, if I could use that terminology, albeit they are dying from their malignancy. So giving them artificial fluid is pointless if the person doesn't want to drink because they are dying. I would then stop the treatment and say to the patient, we're going to send you home to die naturally, if I could use that word, i.e. they're dying from their condition. That is not the same as assisted suicide. And that's why, for me personally, I'm very much against that. When people talk about, those proponents of assisted suicide, they talk about dignity in dying. I'm afraid palliative physicians like myself and the palliative care nurses, that is our business. That's our remit. We want to give patients dignity with dying. So I see what they're trying to say, but killing someone does not give them dignity. You give people dignity when you allow them options. And very few patients are in extreme pain towards the end. I see it often because they reach what's called a terminal agitated state. They're very delirious and they present with severe pain. And I had a very young man only last week who had another gastric cancer, stomach cancer, extensive disease, and he was in extreme pain. I had to sedate him. And that was the only way to make him calm and serene, and we sent him home to die. And that is good medical care. It's knowing when to stop so that people can have time with their loved ones and say their goodbyes.
And that doesn't mean, it's a very important the point that you touched here, the pain factor. That doesn't mean that if I'm going to restore treatment, I'm going to let the other person go through like painful hell for the last 3 days. We're helping them with that, through that as well.
That's right. In this country, I'm afraid pain is not the main reason when people talk about unbearable suffering. It's often existential. If you look at the data from Oregon, most people's request for assisted suicide was loneliness, a sense of loss. They need support and love and care. And that's why the UK has the best palliative care in the world. We are par excellence because we established it. The first modern hospice movement was established in St. Christopher's Hospice in London in the 60s. And that's why we are the gold standard of care. And other countries seek to emulate palliative care.
If you enjoyed that, you can click the link in the description to watch the full podcast or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our website. You can also ask questions in the comments below, which will be directed to healthcare professionals in our future weekly episodes. Thank you so much for watching.